Well, back in 2007, we saw the funding being cut. ASBA represents all the school districts in Arizona, and we felt we should take a leadership role in making sure that the education funding is at the levels that is required by law and is needed by the school children of our state.
Really, at its essence, the inflation funding lawsuit is about creating stability and certainty where we need it most, which is as close to students as we can get it. That's really the stewardship responsibility that board members and educators and district administration have. And education funding that allows us to keep our great teachers, provide students with the resources and materials they need, and allow the resources in so that governing boards can achieve their district mission. Those are all very, very important, and because they involve students, the three organizations that launched the lawsuit and challenged the state decision to stop the inflation funding felt that we were really stewarding the educational quality that students receive, that we were making a positive step toward that certainty and that security and stability of funding that ultimately leads to good things in the public schools across Arizona.
It was really important to us that we become part of this so that we could maintain buying power. With about 85% of any school district's budget being devoted to personnel costs for compensation and benefits of employees, that's where the impact of the lost inflation happens. And at a time when we need to staff our schools and we're struggling to find qualified people for those classrooms, we needed to have the resources to be able to compete. And so this helps to restore some of that ability to be able to compete. We're still not where we need to be, but this is an important measure for us. Well, for us, one of the reasons that we decided to become a leading district in this effort is because we knew the impact of that lost inflation funding. We knew what the ability felt like to not be able to compete for teachers. Back in 1999, this is my second year as a superintendent, we weren't able to fill all of our classroom positions. So we opened the year and spent an entire year with long-term substitutes in classroom positions. So we knew that over time, if we didn't keep our ability to be able to maintain our place in inflation funding, it was going to have a long-term effect on us.
This lawsuit focused on a very narrow question. A ballot proposition in the year 2000 required inflation adjustments to the school funding formula. When the Great Recession hit, the legislature quit making those adjustments. So we went to court to try to force them to do it again. This was never intended to be a solution to long-term funding needs. It was intended to cure one problem. The other problems need to be dealt with, but this case was never going to solve them.
This resolution has brought together three elements that opened a door for settlement. Certainly the legal strategy, the political winds and the political forces that we're facing in K-12, and the financial need of our member districts, which is so eminent. When those three factors came together, a window opened up to secure a settlement to take to the voters. Part of the terms of the settlement agreement include additional appropriation of $50 million for 5 years and $75 million for 5 years. What's important to know about that revenue stream is that while the plaintiffs consider that back pay, the defendants consider it just additional appropriation. And the difference may be semantics, but in a negotiated and compromised settlement, the terms do matter. What it means for K-12 schools is more money to spend on teaching and learning.
The next step is to see whether or not the voters approve the legislation that was enacted in the May election. If they don't, we're back in court, and we face years of continued litigation before we see any money get into the schools.